all the noble words you said when you get down to the bottom line. Get down to the bottom
All right. We are here back for another episode of the Planning Podcast. Hey, look now. It's covered. We covered. We good. So if you are in the building, if you are listening, if you're driving, keep driving because you're not going to want to stop. So super excited to, if you're watching, see our guest, Mikel Brand Oliver. How you doing today, my friend?
Hey, I am wonderful. I'm marvelous. Glad to be here. How are you? How are you feeling?
I'm good. I usually have a jig session before each episode. So if you do watch the intro, it got a nice little ditty bop to it.
That was a vibe. That was a vibe. I love how it ended on your shoes.
That's right.
That was a vibe.
That's right. All right. Well, now I got to shout out the team. Shout out Classified Alias. He is a producer. So does great work. And then shout out 413 Media and Donji Media for the video. So how to shout out those also Black-owned businesses. So thank you for that great work. Now, why are we here today? So real quick, so backstage, I say backstage like we were in the same location, but backstage virtually, we were giving a quick recap on just the weekend. And Mikel mentioned a football game that she was watching and uttered about 2 sentences. Now look now, y'all. I got an older brother that played professional ball. We work with clients that play NFL ball.
Yeah.
I played collegiate ball, and I know football, right? Mikel uttered 2 sentences, and I had to double take and say, "Am I talking to a coach? Hold on now.
You are talking to a coach.
Where does that come from? How's your knowledge around sports or your interest? Where did that come from?"
Yeah, that's a great question. So I grew up in a 2-parent household in New Haven, Connecticut, and my mother and father from early on, shout out to Fanny Brand Oliver and Myron Oliver, just always spoke greatness into me.
Yeah.
And my father was like Superman to me. There was like nothing that he could not do. I always wanted to be around him. Dad. So he would watch sports. He was really into tennis. So I got into tennis. He would watch basketball. I was into basketball. But I didn't understand the game of football. So I kind of stayed away from football. And it wasn't until I want to say like 2000, maybe 11 or 12, I got into football. Someone broke the game down to me.
Right.
And I've been hooked ever since.
I love that. Now that I have a daughter, Isla, Mikel, Cooper, kindred spirits there. And so I'm gonna make sure she's proximate to the sport. So I'm curious to see what she gravitates towards. Now, you may be saying, if you're listening, all right, well, it sounds like, is she a sports broadcaster? What we got going on? Who is Mikel Brand Oliver? Typically, if you tune into the Planning Podcast, we have that theme of money, right? Make sure you understand money. Money is tied to a lifestyle. Managing money is extremely important, especially just knowing the responsibility that you have with those resources as a business owner or even as a household.
Right.
Prior to getting to the physical form of the money, or even in today's days, the digital form of money, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, all of that good jazz, you first have to address what is your thinking around money, more so managing your mind around money, right? And what I love about Mikel, and also knowing that I am a client of Mpact, she's been able to help me look at my future self, in a way that we can quantify the aspirations and the goals that I have, that keeps me not only accountable to those goals, but it opens up a runway of opportunity of thinking of how I'm going to accomplish those goals in a number of different aspects. Look, if you go to the Inside Job podcast, this is probably the longest intro. If you go to the Inside Job podcast, just look at the reviews. right?
Mm.
Like just check out the reviews and you'll see what type of liberation is there. So all that being said, Mikel gave us a quick overview of her connection to sports, and shout out to mom and pops. I believe Myron and Fanny, correct?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So shout out to
Mhm.
mom and pops for that exposure. Tell us about Mikel Brand Oliver on your trajectory towards school, your trajectory towards professional development. What do you want the audience to know about you? Let's start there.
Hmm. What do I want the audience to know about me? I am I'm constantly growing,
Mm,
right? I am I have this activity that I do in my sessions that I was actually introduced to it when I was working within another organization. It's called Who Are You? So
mm,
it's 2 rounds. You're with a partner and you have 60 uninterrupted seconds to answer the question, Who are you? So you just kind of riff for that 60 seconds in round one. And then when you go to round two, you have a new partner and you answer the same question and you can't repeat anything that you said in round one. Right. So oftentimes in round one, you'll have the like, I am someone's your role. So I'm the managing director, I'm the
right,
principal
right.
consultant, founder of Impact Consultancy, LLC.
Hmm.
You start kind of listing off your elevator sales pitch.
Hmm.
But it's in round two when you can't go to those titles, you can't go to the accolades or the accomplishments. You have to unpeel the core
Yeah.
that it gets a little tougher. So when I answer that question, who are you? I often say, I am a lover of words and the color red.
Mm,
I am human. I am learning to love and accept and embrace myself every single day. I am unapologetically proud to be a Black woman. I am able to apologize much quicker now in this
mm,
season of growth than I have been in the past. I believe that stories and storytelling is a form of currency that connects us across our differences. And I have the God given gift of teaching. In everything that I do now in business across all industries, higher ed, K-12 education, nonprofit organizations in the educational ecosystem, working with the American College of Nurse Midwives, whatever the industry is,
right.
the skills that I utilize the most were the skills that I learned as a 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade teacher.
Mm.
You have to take raw material. You have to package it and configure it to invest your stakeholders, beautiful minds, to get them bought in, to get them bought in. And the way that you get them bought in is through building relationship with them, learning about them, their nuances, what they like, what they don't like, what turns that light on inside of them. That's already there. You just have to
Yeah.
unearth it. So who I am is someone that is constantly growing, stumbling and making mistakes, but not condemning myself for it. Growing in my relationship with God and that being an anchor, and that all the bloom and even the withering along the way of my seasons of life started very early, resisting wanting to be a teacher, then being a teacher, then
Mm.
teaching teachers to who I am, who I am now.
What caused some of that resistance in becoming a teacher? What was the root of that?
Yeah, the same characters that show up now that cause resistance, fear and doubt.
Mm,
I didn't think I was smart until I started teaching teachers. I didn't believe I was smart until teachers were like, "Mikel, that was so helpful." Like my students really got that or gravitated
right,
towards. I've never thought about it like that.
right.
I went to Catholic school in New Haven, Connecticut, kindergarten through 8th grade. I was always in the lowest reading group with my other peers that looked like me. I struggled in math. I could not understand mathematical concepts in the way they were delivered and taught to me.
Mhm.
And when I became a fourth grade math teacher, fourth and fifth grade math teacher, it's literally where I learned what regrouping actually was. Like I filled
Mm.
in all the gaps that I had from elementary school math when I started teaching math. So, um,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. Wow. So that is, I know I've dealt with that in the financial industry, specifically around, um, what is it called? It may be self-doubt a bit, but it may be, what is it? The imposter
Im
syndrome,
Imposter
imposter
syndrome.
syndrome,
Mhm.
um, to where it took someone else to communicate the value that I provided in that moment. Like I said, that
Yep,
was really good. Like for
yep,
real, was it?
yeah.
You did that? Like
Yep,
what else? Like
yep.
and it fueled really a need that needed to be filled.
Mhm,
Um, and if I was not fully aware of my ability and the role that I could play in it, um, and really honest with myself too. So there was a level of reflection
mhm,
that naturally happened in the transition from I don't know if I want to teach. All right, now I'm teaching. Okay.
mhm, mhm,
All right, now I'm teaching teachers. Yo, I was kind of good at teaching, right?
mhm,
Like there was this reflection. How do we as people open up the moments to reflect in times of, because that was a little bit of tension, right? That was a little
mhm.
bit of like, all right, do I do this? Do I not? You move forward with it, but
Yeah,
it took a moment to reflect to see like, okay, I see the continuity in that, right? I see the
yeah,
value in that experience. How do we open up those moments? Because that's usually when it's hard to sit still, right?
yeah, yep.
But like, how do you get your mind still enough to be able to sit back and say, how did that go?
Mm, mhm. You know, I believe it's something that we already do naturally, right? We're already contending with the voices in our head, the voice of judgment, the voice of self-sabotage, even the voice of like, you did that thing. You
Right,
know,
right,
they may be hating, ain't nobody said nothing, but you did that thing. So we're
right, right.
already constantly telling ourselves stories, filling in the gaps, and evaluating and assessing. To take that to a more formal process of being like retrospective, looking back over some sequences and seasons of your life, and introspective, like tapping into the emotionality across those seasons. We can be formal in journaling, right?
Mm,
Written journaling,
yeah,
audio journaling. I like
yep,
to
yep.
journal. I like to theme every month. So I journal quite often, and I'll theme like January's theme was hello. February's theme was like welcome. I would theme the months before they even happen and kind of write what I aspire, hope to experience in the month. And then some months I would theme them after. So like a
Okay, okay.
analysis after the month has already transpired. So those are just some technical things. Sharing with people in your conversations that you're having with people, be more curious about how they are instead of saying, "How are you doing?" Say, "How are you feeling?"
Mm,
Right? Now,
hmm,
some people go
yeah,
the same
yeah.
answer they give you, "How you doing?" The same, "How you feeling?" But that kind of opens the space for other people to even reflect on where they are, kind of what's been stewing for them. So
How
that's
do, how do we hold someone accountable in that moment, right? So, man, what's going on, brother? Everything good? Yeah, everything good. Everything's not good, doc, right?
mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's that initial answer
Yeah.
you give to individuals in regards of, yo, how you doing? How you feeling? But sometimes it may take that, an additional push,
Yeah.
right? And
Yep.
so what are some techniques or ways in which we can um, get to that real answer so we can see how
Mm.
they're really feeling?
Yeah, yeah. So someone says if you ask them how they're doing and they say, or if you say, how's your day? They say, my day was good. What was good about it?
Mm,
Right.
yeah,
Or even
yeah,
reframing your initial question.
that's
Now,
good.
how was your day? What was a highlight of your day?
That's good. Yeah, be more specific.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
good.
Yep.
That's good.
And
That's
then it
good.
depends on the nature of your relationships, because meaningful relationships require daily emotional deposits, right? Even when you feel like you don't have that thing. They really do.
Mm, yeah. Yeah,
Iron sharpens iron, Proverbs
right,
27:17.
right.
So if you ask someone how they're doing, and you can tell in their tone or their temperament that they said good, but their disposition doesn't
Mm.
mirror that, you can say, "Okay, you sure? Because I'm getting a different read."
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I like how you
Yeah.
snuck that in there.
Yeah, "You sure? Because I'm getting a I'm getting a different read." And then following up with people on something
Yeah,
that they've told you. I'm getting a different read. How the boys doing in that program? I know
yeah,
he was having a little bit of trouble with friends and socializing, right? You
right,
can
right,
follow up on things.
right.
You don't want to force people. You know, I'm not advising us to stand in place of a therapist or a counselor, but we're going through trying times,
Yep,
right? And this season, some of us have been going through trying times even before the world was kind of flipped on its axis. So
right, right, right.
being in tune with yourself, right? Ask yourself those same questions. Like, how am I
Mm,
feeling? Right?
yeah,
Like, why do I feel a urge to slap somebody? Like,
yeah.
doing that unpacking,
That's right.
doing that
That's
unpacking
right.
for for your own range of emotions, I think better positions you to do that for
Mm.
somebody else.
That's beautiful. And I'm glad that you mentioned the pandemic because I know that we all have colleagues or friends or someone or even ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
well, someone may have approached us. I know even me. I feel like you've given me that response. Like, yeah, Isaac, I hear you, but
Mhm.
that ain't lining up.
Yeah.
Um, and there are moments to where we are so we may be overwhelmed with the situation that either when we are approached and someone asks how are we feeling that we kind of just give the answer to somewhat even avoid the situation or even talking about it or we're so overwhelmed with the situation we miss the opportunity to
Mhm.
ask be more specific with a colleague not knowing what they're going through so I'm
Mhm.
glad you mentioned that so
Yeah.
pandemic has been you got some folks calling it a bandemic. They've done well financially.
Yeah.
And then of course it's been the unfortunate health crisis of it all. But if you in your reflection,
Mhm.
what have you seen that have been two highlights that have come out of the pandemic as you look at what the if it was either limited traveling that may have shifted for you, if it was more virtual sessions or even any type of life events. But what are two highlights um, that came out of the pandemic?
Mm. Two highlights. I would say the main one has been exercising my faith.
Mm,
I I came into 2021 with the theme, and I share this in episode 1 of the Inside Job podcast. I came in 2021 with the theme, worry about nothing, pray about everything,
hmm,
right? And simple in phrasing, more challenging in action.
mm,
And the pandemic has caused I think many of us to draw on our faith, right?
yeah,
Draw on something greater than ourselves to anchor us, to recenter us. And for me, it was like, okay, this thing is really real. I'm making some business moves at a time that seem like a high risk, leaving some more comfortable places of revenue to venture out more independently and seeing God's provision,
mm,
right? Not doing the Tootsie Roll and testifying after the fact, knowing that I
right,
was in a
right,
corner cowering. No, I'm talking about like before I even see it, before I even know it, I'm exercising my faith. I'm leaning on you, God. There's going to be a lesson in this for me. And seeing God's provision and seeing his peace was really great. And I had gotten a glimpse of that even prior to the pandemic when I left full-time work, lucrative career to go to school without any income for a year to study. I saw God's peace and provision. So it was almost like he was preparing me for what was to come. So the continuation of my faith growing during the
Love it.
pandemic has been a great thing. And the second thing is, while there is this continuum of the interest being performative and the interest being more purposeful, there has been a dialogue. I have been working with a lot of clients around racial equity work, racial justice. How do we disrupt and dismantle the policies, practices, and cultures within our organization that uphold white supremacy ideology? Now, whether organizations are being called out by the folks in the organization or this cancel culture, right? Because if you're silent, then you're complicit. Then if you make a statement and it's fugazi and y'all ain't really doing the work, you're going to be called out on it. There has been this concentrated effort on what is institutionalized racism? What does it mean to be anti-racist? How do we sit in really uncomfortable conversations across difference as a bridge to change? So seeing the garnered interest, again, some on the performative side of the spectrum, some on the purposeful side of the spectrum, has been a great thing.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So much to unpack there. And I'm taking notes. So please, we gonna circle back.
Yeah.
So you spoke about a time in which you took a year off.
Yes.
So all right, let's check this. All right. A little bit more school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it's Harvard.
Yeah.
No, that's how you gotta say it, Harvard. Yes, ma'am. Which is it's a big deal, right? And however you look at it, and I'm interested, how was your experience specifically? So I went to a PWI, Stanford University here in Birmingham, Alabama. I want to say maybe around less than 6-7% undergrad, grad. The term of usage is African American. I'm just gonna say Black folks, about 6-7%. And there is a unique experience, right? There's a cultural difference. There is a communication difference based off of the people that are on the campus. Even there may be a difference on how instructors and professors approach you and communicate with you. What was your experience as a Black woman going to Harvard for that year of additional education that you applied towards?
Yeah. So a little context setting before I arrived, I was working for DC Public Schools for 8 years. I was working in Southeast DC. Shout out to Stanton Elementary School.
Shout out Stanton.
And I was a mathematics instructional coach there. So teaching teachers.
Hold up. For someone that did not really grasp the way mathematics was being delivered at the time of your earlier educational time frame, now you evolved into the mathematical instructor.
Teacher of mathematics, and then teaching teachers mathematical instructional best practices.
I love it.
That's a turnaround. That's a turnaround. For real. That's a turnaround. So many of our stories are like that.
That's exactly right. That's right. That's right.
I mean, miseducation is a tool of oppression. So there was some miseducation going on that caused me to think that I was not smart and that I could not do math.
Yeah, that's good. That's
okay.
Good.
So
yeah.
Some context before then, I wanted to be uncomfortable, right? Like comfort builds an immunity to change. So I
Woo!
had been
Say it
around.
again. Say it again. Say it again. Whoa, 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 whoa. We got to back up. I wanted to be uncomfortable. You made
Yeah,
a decision,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
What usually there's some stirring.
Yeah, there was. Mhm.
Okay, okay,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
okay,
So there was some
okay.
there was some stirring in 2017. I mean, I was doing good, I was eating good, I was living good, I was driving
Right,
good, and I
right,
said,
right, right.
"God, is this it?" I felt there was more. I felt there
Mm,
was more that I was being called to. But then, those same characters, fear and doubt, showed up.
yeah,
So I great career in DC public schools. I've worked with incredible people that became friends, traveled out of the country with folks, good quality relationships and experiences, the babies that I've met and
right,
and built relationships with in the families.
yeah,
But comfort builds an immunity to change. And I was in an environment where I was not challenged much, right? Folks call me Ali. So it was like, Ali said it's good. Right?
yeah,
Not
yeah,
not to say that folks were frightened or didn't feel like they could contend or challenge me, but it didn't happen often. And
right.
I knew in order to grow, I had to experience what it was like for someone to be like, "Nah, that idea actually, nah, that's not
Yeah,
helpful. Next."
yeah.
Right?
I love it. That's
So
right.
you can ride high on success, and
You
you can
got
ride
that
so
right.
high on success that your blind spots are never exposed by the people
Yeah,
around you, and duh, you don't see them because they're your blind spot. I needed to see all that. I
yeah.
needed to see what would be my emotional reactions. So I said, I'm going to go to school. I want to immerse myself in learning. I wanted to open an all boys school, had founded an initiative for Black boys in grades 3 through 5 called the Boys Institute. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Harvard. Met a young lady who went to Harvard. Shout out to Katika. Looked just like me,
Yeah,
natural hair. And I was like, you went to
yeah.
Harvard? Okay, if she
Right,
went to
right,
Harvard, I can go to Harvard.
right, right.
So now,
That's
so now
right.
I'm at Harvard wanting to
Real
be,
quick, real quick, real
yeah,
quick. Just the power of a visual, right?
representation matters.
The power of a visual. That is just
Matters.
in the detail of natural hair to like, oh, okay, so you rock because there is a cultural component of that aligns one's story and journey that gives trajectory, right, to some of the aspirations that you have. That's just I always want to highlight those moments because sometimes we overthink what the change needs to be. Sometimes they just need to see someone in it, right? And that will trigger that immediate inertia to be able to get them interested. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No,
that
no,
was a
that's a word.
powerful moment.
No, you needed to pin that. Representation matters. I
Yeah.
met a little girl during my internship when I was at Harvard, and I heard her over talking to maybe a speech pathologist in a office area, and I heard her say that she wants to go to Harvard, and the school was predominantly Black. And I got up, went into the room, and said, introduced myself, got her name, and said, "Did I overhear you say that you want to go to Harvard?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "I go to Harvard,
Wow.
and you can definitely go to
Right.
Harvard."
Right.
'Cause
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
was 35 when I met Katika and
Right.
said, "You went to Harvard, I can go to Harvard."
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
little girl being in
Yeah.
3rd or 4th grade,
Yeah.
seeing another Black face,
Yeah.
I even remember telling my friend, I was like, "So Harvard College is the undergraduate program, and then Harvard University is the coalition of graduate schools." So I
Okay.
remember telling my friend, like, Harvard College, they don't have an elementary education program, right? You can't get a degree in elementary education there. And she was like, "No, Mick, I didn't know that." And she was like, "You know why we didn't know that? Because we don't know any Black folks that went to Harvard." Right. You're right. Now, shout out to all the Black folks that have gone to
Right.
Harvard across time, right?
Right.
Shout out
Right.
to
Right.
those folks, but we didn't, right? In
That's
our
right.
sphere of influence, we didn't know any people. So I went to Harvard to be challenged. I went to Harvard to be uncomfortable. I went to Harvard to experience affinity across difference. A few years ago, I would have never walked into a room of white folks and engaged in
Mhm.
conversation because of my own imposter syndrome. I'm not good
Mhm.
enough. I'm not smart enough. they're not going to accept me.
Yeah.
All constraints that I put on myself and was not comfortable. Now I talk and speak and teach rooms full of white people with comfort, with empathy, with grace. So I went to Harvard to be uncomfortable. The surprising element was, and I was at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, so many Black, Indigenous people of color
Wow.
at Harvard Graduate School of Education. The dean, Bridget Cherry Long, is a Black woman. So there was just a sense of belonging, like, oh, we are out here for real out here.
Right.
So that was comforting. And even across the schools, it's still a predominantly white institution. Harvard is still Harvard and is going to be on
Right.
brand for a lot of things. However, the representation is there, specifically the Graduate School of Education. So that was great. And then I wanted to be challenged. So I was more open and receptive to being challenged, but definitely ready and on mission to advocate and offer a dissension of perspective and idea. It's based on my lived experience, basis on the voices and the stories and the families from Southeast DC, from Prince George's County when I taught there, from New Haven, Connecticut. So it was an incredible experience. Then I got to have class with Dr. Cornell West and Professor Khalil Muhammad. So
that's dope.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love how you spoke to the change that you wanted to or the culture you wanted to create to develop more change, right? However you wanted to apply it. Because oftentimes I think when we want to change something for the better, we don't correlate it to how we feel. Right. And usually if you feel uncomfortable, you're not going to want to stay uncomfortable. Right. And but typically, oftentimes, that's where not only change but growth arise. And
100%.
we could boil it down to, we'll go back to sports. If you're used to doing 10 push-ups, and then there's that one day you said, okay, I'm gonna shoot for 11. It's gonna be very uncomfortable. Probably by the time you hit 9, because you already said, all right, I got to commit to 11. But as soon as you drop back down after 10 and you start to see a little bit of movement, right? And it creates that joy, that anticipation, that excitement. Those muscles that are hurting are actually being built into a stronger version of themselves, right? And so there is this attachment. Let me take that back. There is detachment of uncomfort and growth that you beautifully shared your journey and attaching the two, and how it, I don't even want to say catapulted, but it continued the journey that you have for yourself, to which leads me to my next question. Thank you, ma'am. Is impact. Let's talk about it. So you mentioned this entrepreneurial journey. You mentioned, shout out to all of our business owners, all of our 1099 K1s, 1120Ss. I'm throwing tax codes out there. That means you better have your paperwork
all of
right.
us. Yes,
That's right.
Have it in order. Have it in order and filed now.
All of that. All of that. Impact. Share with us how you spell impact, one, because I feel like every detail matters. And if you are watching us on this interview, you have the opportunity to see how thoughtful Mikel is. There's no filler words. There's no no ahs. It's all right, let me pause. Together.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to highlight that impact was spelled differently. So I'll, of course, you could share the backstory behind that, but also tell us what you do with impact, folks.
So impact is spelled M-P-A-C-T, no I in impact. And that M is a play on my first name, Mikel, and my father's name, Myron. And I started Impact in 2019. So classes ended at Harvard on April 30th. I moved back to Maryland on May 1st. I LLC'd Mpact on May 7th and signed my first client on May 13th. That's how fast things rolled in God's plan and provision. But prior to, I was
Hold on, real
applying.
quick. I'm so sorry. I have to. So, can you tell us some of the pre-planning?
Yeah.
Because what I don't want someone to say is, all right, I'm gonna get me an LLC and I'm gonna get me a contract in about 2 weeks, and then I'm whoa, hold on now,
Yeah.
So I knew that there was some work done prior to.
Yep.
So just some of the pre-planning. You don't have to get too deep into it, but how did you get to the point of, I'm starting a business, all right, LLC, these are my service offerings, you know what I'm saying, to be able
Yeah.
to retain that client that quickly?
Yeah, wise move to peel that back. So the comprehensive answer is I spent a whole year preparing, right?
Yeah,
I was in school.
yeah,
So I'm not saying you have to spend money and get in more debt and go to school for a year. The key is the preparation
yeah,
that you do, right? The researching, the talking to people, the clarifying what your vision is, to clarifying what your mission is, to really extract what are your gifts. What do you do naturally that you can monetize, right? If people always say you have such great ideas, or the products that you have, the food that you cook, whatever it is, whatever your gifting is, whatever your skill set is, extracting how can I monetize that to be a service for others, right? Because
yeah,
oftentimes we're giving it away for free.
yeah. That's
So
good.
preparation is key. Some things that I did, I was able to intern with the Disruptive Equity Education Project, which is an equity-centered organization, while I was at Harvard. And Deep is a virtual organization. And I didn't know, like, a whole virtual organization. Again, this is before the
Right,
pandemic. So
right,
I was like, that works.
right.
Less overhead.
Hmm.
People were engaging in virtual coaching sessions, virtual facilitation. I said, I want to use that model. And shout out to Deep. I learned a lot from Deep of what to do, and I learned a lot of what not to do. And
Hmm.
I applied both to how I wanted to move forward in business.
Right.
Even a year prior, I thought about, what is my brand all about? And your brand is really connected to who you are. Who you are is what your business is going to be. How you do anything is how you do everything, right? So I said, well, my brand is self-development. That's what I've been doing as a teacher. That's what I've been doing as a teacher of teacher. That's what I do as a friend. That's what I do
Yeah.
for myself. What would that look like in terms of a service model in business? So those are the things that I stewed on, but preparation was the foundation
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
led me to starting Mpact. And also, I was I was applying for consultant positions within education because I knew I wanted to see a little bit more of the landscape. And I kept being told no. I mean, folks that I knew, programs that I
Mm.
had been a part of, I was reaching out and they was pump faking on me.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, I'm like, all these no's as I'm finishing
Yeah.
school. And God said, you're looking at your yes.
Mm.
You are the person that you're looking for. You are the person that you're looking for. And that could be tough, man. That could be tough because you're
Yeah.
like, how? What
Tough.
resources?
That's
How I'm gonna do it? How am I the
right.
person I'm looking for? I can't be. I
Mm.
can't be, because you definitely need partnership, right? You want to
Yeah.
go, definitely want to go far. You need partnership. You want to go fast, go on your own. But a lot of the things that we're looking for, that we're seeking, are already inside.
Mm.
It's really just
Mm.
unlocking that. And
Yeah.
that's what I do with Mpact. That's what I attempt to do with Mpact. Pushing people. Really, I'm just hold up a mirror and show you who you are,
Yeah.
right? As
Yeah. Yeah.
valuable, as equipped, as brilliant, as incredible, as gifted as you are.
Yeah.
I'm just going to show you that.
Yeah.
I'm just going
I
to show you
love it.
that.
I love
Mhm.
it. I love it. I love it. As I mentioned, I am a client. Shout out to the new link that went out. I am a client of
Mhm.
Mpact, and it is part of, and I'll quickly parallel. So at IMC, part of what we do, there is an element of needing to know where you're going, right?
Yeah.
For us to be able to help guide. So like you said, it's that element of, hey, you said you was trying to get this done 90 days from now, right? And
Mhm.
so that the way you just shopped yesterday does not reflect that goal. So like
Yeah.
there is that aspect of it.
Yep.
And what I've appreciated is the safe space
Mhm.
to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
But in that vulnerability, there has not been a session that it happens in the meeting, but
Mhm.
even after the meeting, how it's kind of like that next phase of like it just clicks, like shit,
Mm. Mhm.
like it's just it moves, right? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so um and I'm curious to see the feedback from the podcast because I'm pretty sure those that are listening, you can already tell there has been some type of clicking for you. Just wow, I feel like she talking to me, because I got hit with 2 body shots. Like, oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
good,
Yeah.
Mikel.
Yeah. I pray so.
Uh,
Mhm.
all right. Look. Okay, so let's talk about this.
Mhm.
So there is this balance
Yep.
of, all right, I'm experiencing pain
Mm.
and I need to ask for help.
Mhm.
Then there is, I'm uncomfortable
Mm. Mhm.
and I need to grow, right?
Mhm.
So it's kind of like that parallel we use in football is like, are you hurt or are you injured? Like, all right,
Mm.
if it hurt a little bit, man, bro, hey, get back out there. Okay,
Mhm.
you're injured, you need to see a doctor, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so how can you differentiate the two in the moment of, because typically when you're uncomfortable there is an element of, could be an element of pain, it
Mhm.
could be self-inflicted, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
um um so how do you differentiate between the two? Because I know what I've had to work on is when I need to say, hey, I need some help, because I'll be like, no, I'm growing, hey, he growing me right here, no, I got it. Some of that's pride too, let me be
Of
honest.
course.
But
Yeah.
but it's just, so what's that balance between the two of like the hurt and injured aspect of mental development, if that makes sense?
Mm. I think mm. So part of me is like, why should we make distinctions
Ooh,
across the hurt or the injured? Why should we make distinctions within those emotional environments, right?
okay, okay,
Because context and conditions matter so much.
yeah,
And what you've experienced, if you are an adult, even for children, but what you experience as an adult is directly connected to your childhood and
yeah,
your upbringing and the conditions and the environments in which you were reinforced by or not, where you were loved or neglected, where you were nurtured and felt secure, or where you were abandoned. Those play such a huge role in people's responses, their reactions, how they see themselves, and how they navigate the world. And to make that distinction across those emotional states, to me, doesn't honor
mm,
what people have just lived through and gone through. So someone's situation that we can easily say, if she don't pull it together, there's so
wow,
many people out here that got it worse struggling, and here she is with her first world problems. But until you have lived or experienced the conditions of the fullness of that human, it's unfair to cast where they should be or how they should respond. And I'm talking to myself for real,
yeah,
because we
yeah,
can so easily do that.
yeah,
The important thing is to not stay or hover in one particular place, to accept your full range of emotions, and be brave enough and courageous to ask for the help and be intentional enough and loving to hold folks accountable.
Oh boy, that's a whole bar. That's a whole bar. And you help me provide more grace,
Mm-hmm.
even for myself
Mm-hmm.
as I take on more obstacles, right? Because there's probably times where I take on more of the obstacle,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that I am, oh, I'm just, it just hurt a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
in turn, I'm injured, right? No, you need assistance, right? And in that assistance and asking for assistance, and for those that may be a little gun shy with
Mm-hmm.
this part of the process, as I was and continue to work on, is that it's actually more courageous to ask for that assistance than to sit and literally oppress yourself, right?
It's 100%.
Based off of how you describe it.
100%.
Now
And we
you
can do it so easily in other contexts, right? Like
yep,
if you're
yep.
somewhere and you're waiting in line, is a line in the line too long? You be like, is there another register? Someone else and then can get on the register. Like we can advocate so boldly and so clearly externally, but being able to advocate for yourself, being able to recognize what you need,
Yeah.
and that could be hard to do. I'm not saying this is clear. Like you just sitting, like, you know exactly what I need. First thing I need to do is I need to handle that issue with my father. Got to get
Yeah.
that. The next
Yeah.
thing I need to restore with my best friend. It doesn't come like that.
Yeah.
Especially when you're sitting on compound interest of anger, resentment, hurt feelings. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't come easy like that, but you can't leave it unattended.
Yeah, that's
However,
good.
you have to attend to that is is key.
Yeah,
How you attend to that is key.
that's so good. And it also reminds me, um, when you think about emotions and the role that it plays, we talk about how, and even when I'm making decisions around money, right?
Yeah.
You don't, you want to acknowledge your emotion in the moment,
Mhm.
right? But you don't want to give it authority, right? Like
Yes.
you don't want that to be the leading indicator on how you're going to react to whatever the situation is. But there is, and what I used to do, I would avoid my emotions,
Yep.
right?
Me
And
too.
so, and the value is acknowledging it. All right, look, I ain't gonna let you run me,
Right.
but all right, my feelings is a little hurt. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? Let me go
Mhm.
put that to the side, but I
Mhm.
acknowledge you, but I'm not going to react with hurt feelings.
Right.
I'm going to acknowledge that, okay, I'm a little sideways about this. I'm just going to say that real quick. I'm a little sideways, but all right, you gotta
Yep. 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 Yep.
listen to
Yep.
me.
Yep. And then asking yourself why you're sideways about it, right? Like everything you're saying, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of soothing versus healing,
Mm,
and where in my life I've spent time soothing, how I self-soothe, and how that is just kind of putting a layer of Vaseline on things. But healing is actually may involve the scalpel, may involve an incision, may involve a scar. So that's
that's strong.
I'm still percolating on that. Want to see that in season 2 of the Inside Job podcast. And I also am wondering how you've seen or experienced, whether yourself or through your clients, how people soothe financially and how people
Yeah,
heal financially.
yeah, yeah. That's so good. That's so Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love
Mhm.
it. That is so strong. That is so strong. What I love about the level of detail you articulated in the difference between soothing and healing. What I love about the healing component you mentioned was a scar. Oh.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
It's going to leave a mark. You know what I'm saying? And I think we want to keep the soothing element of it. One, it feels it's a fix, right? Like it's a all right, bet.
Facts.
but it doesn't show what you've experienced, right?
Mhm.
And so there's an element of healing that you, in some form of fashion, and I'm just unpacking what the terms you use, in some
Yeah.
form of fashion, you're publicly acknowledging your journey, right? Because of the
Mm.
marks and the scars. That's all right. Next question. I
That's
love it. I
real.
love
That's
it. I
real.
love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's so real.
So
That's so
you
real.
drop a perspective
Mhm.
on. I'm looking at the time. We good. All right, you dropped a perspective that I would love for you to unpack, because
Yeah.
we have a number of CEOs, presidents, business owners,
Mhm.
leaders throughout the community, all on every aspect, that are tuned in, listening, and so we want to make sure that they are all equipped.
Yeah.
In this same breath of being uncomfortable, as you mentioned, there's been a number of events that has happened over the last 18 months, 24 months, that has triggered this conversation around race, equality,
Mhm.
justice,
Yeah.
um, process, right?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm. Mhm.
involvement, stakeholders,
Yeah.
um, that unfortunately has caused more of a divide, right,
Mm.
in some
Mhm.
form of fashion.
Mhm.
But it also has established more communication and awareness in this appetite for to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Now, regardless of what anyone does, there is going to be a group of individuals that have yet to have the exposure necessary to shift their thinking or
Mhm.
their heart. That may be in a process of just checking the box at this point, and we're
Mhm.
not speaking to those individuals. Um, I want you to see.
FYI.
Yeah, y'all can go ahead.
FYI.
Y'all can go X out. Y'all can go X out.
Yo, what a smooth flex and finesse you did with that. That was smooth. It even caught me. I was like, wait, did he just dismiss?
Because there was some folks that, they're like, this is good. This about to be like, I don't want to hear that. I know. So
Right. You
holla
need
at
you
you.
need to hear it. Be
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
that's right.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
That's right. So what are, and let me make sure I word this the right way.
Yeah.
So for those that are witnessing what some have seen for decades,
Yeah.
for those that are um, within their household having different conversations with their children, for
Mhm.
those that are leading a group of people and they are asking questions on, what is this? Hey, this is wrong.
Mhm.
Are we playing a role? What do we do? Right. And
Mhm.
so there are individuals that just need next steps. And I know it's difficult to speak to the specificity of one's next steps without knowing the individual.
Mhm.
But based off of what your experience and the work you've done with CEOs across the country, how would you help form a sequential process, or at least a sequential um, thought process before they look at any action, right?
Mhm.
Or now, if you
Mhm.
want to cut a check, you can cut a check to the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. We are in downtown Birmingham. As you try to figure out what you want to do,
Yeah.
yeah, we take those as well.
Yeah.
But but what would you recommend in regards of, like, all right, your heart is pulling you.
Mhm.
The facts of the situation is confirming what your heart is pulling on you.
Yeah.
How do I address this? I have influence. I'm a leader. What do I do?
Right, right, right. Great question. For starters, equity work is relational work, right?
Mm,
So any plan or any strategic approach that involves a lot of transactional and technical elements, that you're going to boost the number of Black, Indigenous, people of color in leadership, some HR initiatives. You're going to write anti-racist values and commitments that you're going to hold the organization accountable to. Those those are solid, but in and of themselves, that's not relational. Those are like technical
mm,
things that you can put into place. So that should not be your starting point, right? That's somewhere on the list of, that's somewhere on your roadmap
right.
to advancing equity, specifically racial equity, I advise the starting point to be listening. Listening. There is a slogan that was formed around disability rights that is, nothing about us without us is for us.
Wow.
It is
That's good.
virtually impossible to advance racial equity within your organization without the voices leading, informing, and guiding those efforts that have been most adversely impacted by institutional racism.
Mm,
The same circle of people that have perpetuated the problem cannot solve them.
mm,
If you look around and the diversity of brain trust is absent in your efforts, you're going to keep hovering around the same issues. And the
yeah.
folks in your organization are going to continue to call for change. So you need to listen. Whatever that looks like, if that's feedback sessions, if that's focus groups, you need to hear. Yes, you can send out surveys, collect some qualitative and quantitative data, but you have to have the infrastructure to be able to assess that, maybe put that data on a pain point matrix to see where are the most intense areas of concern. Listening is a great place to start.
Mm,
Focus groups,
mm.
hear from people.
That's good.
What
That's so
what's
good.
people's experience been?
Right.
What does change look like? How do we define equity? It's a lot of terms out here:
Right.
anti-racism, anti-racist, um, racial justice. How do you
Mm,
define those terms?
right.
Right? Common language, sparring on common language could be really helpful.
Yeah.
And using the voices and the experiences of people to determine what that, and the leadership of folks to determine what that roadmap looks like, and recognize that it's going to take time, right? These
Yeah.
challenges have been here before us and they will persist even after our time here. We're talking about generational
Right. Right. Right.
pain,
Right.
right? We're talking about centuries of inequity
Hmm.
that still persists today. So managing your expectations, number one, and listening as your starting place is number two.
Powerful.
Mhm,
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. All my fellow CEOs out there, make sure you share this with a friend.
mhm,
Um, Mikel, as you can see, just even in a quick overview, speaks to the importance of having um, a process
mhm,
and as well the right person to help guide you with this. Because as mentioned before, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
go
And
together.
so, and you want to definitely want to make sure that you have someone on the guide that can
Mhm,
say, "Nah, yeah, last time I went around that corner, it's a little tight, so we're gonna have to, slow it down. Yeah, lean a little bit, shift your
yeah,
weight.
yeah,
They've been able to experience that, location of the roadmap to
mhm,
where the journey, the destination is the same, right? Like,
yeah,
hey, we're looking to get here,
yeah,
but you have someone to be able to help you navigate the terrain. Hey,
mhm,
it's a little bumpy here, right?
yeah,
So we may need to shift the type of vehicle we're driving. So I love it. I love it.
yeah.
I'm thinking
Can I
about
just
how.
can I
Yes.
plug one thing in really, really quick that
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
just thought of? Uh, Thank you for your grace and let me jump in there. A great activity to try, and you can do this in a small group before you branch out into larger groups or across the organization. And this is definitely something that a consultant like myself could support you with. But when you take time to visualize, like in an ideal world, what would a racially just organization look like? Or if our organization was racially just and equitable, what would that look like? What would that sound like? And what would that feel like? Giving folks that space to visualize together, to hear even the differences in perspective, but to lift those common themes that ultimately people want to be seen, heard, and loved
Right.
is a powerful activity around this
Mhm.
idea of listening.
Yeah.
Listen towards elevating um, an ideal vision
Yeah.
of being
Yeah.
a racially just organization is powerful.
Hey, look, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, y'all, and that's okay because we just talked about growth and uncomfort being tied together, right? And so you'll be able to grow, you'll be able to evolve. I forgot, it may have been about no, it's about 6 or 7 years ago. I'm gonna do it consistently. I'm more consistent now, but I
Yeah.
remember telling myself I'm going to start counting how many times I get uncomfortable during the day,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I needed at least 2 moments, right? And so it was
It's real.
either, I got moments where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna shoot my shot. All right, there's
Mhm.
someone that I would love to meet or
Yep.
speak to
Yep.
or communicate with. Um, and I think I'm probably about 9 for 10 right now. Hey, them things dropping. We still waiting
Yeah.
on the response of another. But I was uncomfortable in that moment. But what it yielded is a forest of opportunities,
Abundance.
and I'm super, super excited about it.
Yeah. I
All
had a
right.
professor say the difference between a perceived constraint and a constraint is reality.
Mm,
Perceived constraint is like the story that you've told yourself before you even attempted,
yeah.
right? It could be the self-doubt, it could be the judgment, it could be the sabotage, the imposter syndrome, right? A gamut of things. That's the perceived, it's not going to work out. They're going to say no, it's not good enough. That's a perceived constraint.
Yeah.
The difference between that and then a real is reality. You have to attempt it. You have to try it. You have to sit
Right.
in the discomfort. You have to shoot
Right.
your shot.
Right. Right.
You have
Right.
to
Right.
put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. And sometimes for certain identities in this country, I speak specifically about Black folks, that discomfort is all around you. You don't have to go
Yeah.
looking for opportunities to be uncomfortable. Hello,
Come on now. Come
you can
on
just
now.
show
Come
up
on.
and get the
Hey,
result.
hey.
You can just show up.
Yeah.
Right. So I
Yeah.
want I want to acknowledge that
Yeah.
some folks are like, I am living and breathing in identities that put my value in my life at crisis on
Yeah.
a daily basis.
Yeah.
On a
Yeah.
daily basis. But
Yeah.
even in that, you can be comfortable with the thoughts that this is how it will always be, or
Yeah.
that people won't value you, right? Or that everyone's working against you,
Yeah.
right? So more
Yeah.
than one thing
Yeah.
can be true.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead and liberate that. Thank you. Thank you
Mhm.
for sharing that, because that is right in line. And I got one more question before
Yeah.
we close, and we bring Mikel back, y'all. So just an FYI,
Oh,
you
yes, I
submit
would
your
love to.
questions. It reminds me of OG Dr. Miles Monroe.
Yeah.
He speaks to a study that was done that they tied a dog up, and
Mm,
there was a stake about inches away. So they had a chain link or a chain type of whatever connector to where he couldn't run so far, limited his
yeah.
distance,
Yep.
and they had a stake at the end. Dog ran as fast as he could, yanked it back right as soon as he got close to the stake.
Yeah.
Ran as
Yep.
fast as he could, yanked it back. So
Yeah.
over a 2-week period, he was like, you know what, bump it. So they go back to him. They take off they unhook him from the chain. They move the plate to him. He backs up. They move the plate to him, backs up some more. He's associating that previous experience, right?
Conditioning. Mhm.
And that conditioning actually now has mentally incarcerated him, right? And so
Come
he
on.
was locked up prior
Come on.
to,
Yep.
but physically, but that now redefined his reality to the point to where he doesn't even want to attempt it anymore. And I think that, as you mentioned, that
Mhm.
is what is happening real time, is that we are acknowledging that the physical chains are no longer there, but there are some mental ones that has been intentionally curated, but also some mental ones that we can intentionally dissect and remove to ensure
Yes.
that we can get into this thriving type of activity. So I'm super,
Bars. That's
super
a
glad
word,
you
sir.
shared that.
That was a
It
word,
flowed.
sir.
It flowed. You
That was
covered
a
us.
word,
You
sir.
covered us. You covered us. You covered us.
That
So
was
we
a
in
word,
it.
sir.
We in it. We in it. All right. So we have our premier question that we ask all of our audience. As you can see, even on the virtual display, that the planning podcast, we spell it uniquely, intentionally.
Yes.
The A is replaced with the delta sign.
Mhm.
So we believe that anything that is to essentially change for the long term, or anything that is substantial, anything that is important that you intend to change, the foundation of that is through planning. And so
Mm,
if you paid attention in geometry, mathematics. I didn't get this. I remember it, but it was someone else that reminded me. They said, Isaac, the delta sign in math represents change. And so that's why we wanted to make sure that we replace the A with the delta sign. So if you could share with us, you've shared a number of different opportunities, but if you could share with us a moment in which you remembered where you said, all right, let me put this game plan together. You executed the game plan, and planning ultimately revealed itself as a success for you.
Trying to think of an example that I haven't touched on. I would say thank you for the grace and me thinking.
Oh, I love it. Hopefully folks take away, because that can be an uncomfortable moment, right? To where you may be having a conversation with someone and there's silence, right?
Yeah.
What I encourage others, and even what I am learning, is to embrace that moment, right? Because what we intend to do is feel it because we're uncomfortable, and not necessarily keep unpacking what we're about to deliver, right? Or allow the other person to unpack it. I could have been like, yeah, and no, I'm gonna hush up. Hey, you think it, you know what I'm saying? Let me back up. So
That's a word. Yes.
yeah, yep.
I'm gonna go with, you know what? I'm gonna go. I was gonna go with transitioning to being vegetarian, but I'm gonna go with
Ooh.
the Inside Job podcast as my example of where I've
Yeah.
seen the benefit of planning manifest. I think the marriage between planning and execution
Yeah.
is harmonious,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And with the Inside Job podcast, my mom, shout out to Fanny, I call her Fran, my
Shout
favorite
out,
teacher,
Mom.
my coach, my cheerleader. She was telling me for a while, you need to do a podcast. You need to do a podcast. And I was like, Fran, you always think, your mom or your friends, like, y'all just hyping me, right?
Yeah,
Somebody
right.
tell you, and you'd be like, you know what? Thank you for that. You spoke a word into my life. Folks have told me for years. So she had been telling me to start a podcast, and those same characters, y'all, fear and doubt,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants to hear you. What are you gonna be? What are you gonna say? And then especially the inclusion of my faith and scripture and in highlighting the glory of God. I was like, girl, this ain't no ministry. You are not
Yeah, this is
but
good.
I took the time to research, right? Again, you don't have to student loan debt. You don't have to go to an institute. YouTube
Yep.
is phenomenal, and the content that people put out to teach. So I Googled how do you use GarageBand on Mac
Right.
products, right? What microphones to get? How
Right.
do you create content? And I was just hearing people kind of share their wisdom and nuggets, and then I took note. Then I can be very organized. So I had this whole Google Drive of like, okay, here's the steps that I want to take to even get the podcast up and running. I want to do 10 episodes. I want to start February 1st because that was 2121, and I want to end it April 5th, the day after my 39th birthday. Here are the topics that have been stewing, things that I've been writing in my journal. I even wrote in the margin of my journal one time, The Inside Job. And I was like, maybe that's a book title. Who knows? It was just a download the Holy Spirit gave me.
Right.
So kind of did that planning and that organizing, and then said to myself, okay, once I write out the flow for episode 1, then I'll purchase the microphone from Amazon. Like that was that was almost my treat for accomplishing a goal.
Right.
So then I kind of hesitated on writing the flow of episode 1 because just things got busy. Them same characters, fear and doubt. But I got organized, had a plan, had some treats had some incentives in my plan that I would
Mm,
get if I accomplished certain milestones. Said, okay, I'm gonna have to use Saturday. So there was some sacrifice that was part of
mm,
the plan. I'm gonna use Saturdays to record. I'm gonna use Saturdays to create, which was new for me. Now it's been so helpful because Saturday is another work day for me, and that's
yeah,
just helpful to break up the week.
yeah,
So the podcast is definitely an example of where planning times execution
yeah.
manifested. I mean, there were so many times I talk about it, I think in episode 2, where I was like, once it was out and I shared it with people, I was like, why did I do that? Like, I don't like my voice. Like, I literally was like, God, why do I always have to say something? Why can't it
Right.
be in the background?
Yeah.
I really started cursing my gift.
You just
So
spoke to me.
that's a highlight with planning, right? Just because you
Mm.
plan doesn't mean like your confidence or your assurance in it is going to always be solid, and that doesn't make you fraudulent. That makes you a human,
Oh,
right? That also might mean you might need to tighten up the plan. You
yeah.
might need to eliminate some energy, some presence in your
Mm,
circle.
mm,
So
mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and write things down. Write
Yes,
things
ma'am.
down.
Yeah.
Write
Yeah.
the vision and
Yeah.
make it plain so that the one who reads it can run. Write things
Come on
down.
now. Habakkuk 2:2. You better speak. You
Yes,
better speak.
write things
Oh,
down.
I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Don't just keep it in your head. Don't just keep
Yeah.
it in your head. Write your plan down, even if it's the
Right.
note section on your phone. Write things
Right.
down.
Right. 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 I love it. Two takeaways.
Yes,
Treats, right? So
yes,
we even talk about this when we talk about money management. All right, I have a goal that's 12 months down the road. I want to save $6,000 by the 12 months from now. Okay, that's $500 a month. All right, what is that a week, right? What are
yes,
those bite-sized moments that you can celebrate and give
yes.
yourself a treat? And it may be like, okay, I'm trying to find some low budget. I'm going to go on a walk in the park and get me some ice cream. That may be a cheat meal, right? Or
Yep,
something of that
yep.
nature. And the second was sacrifice,
Mm-hmm,
treats and sacrifice, right?
mm-hmm,
And so anything that is in the queue
mm-hmm,
of change, implementation,
mm-hmm,
there's two things that you have to, all right, let me put treats together because this is going to be uncomfortable,
mm-hmm,
right? Because I'm doing something that I haven't done before. And
mm-hmm,
then two, let me brace my flesh to be
mm-hmm,
sacrificed
mm-hmm.
as this is going to require my time to be reimagined. And as I execute, the culture and the community around me may reimagine some of the folks that are presently around to ensure that I can continue to execute at a level that this may require.
100%. And there's so
Yeah.
much gain with that sacrifice.
Yes. Yes.
There's gain with that sacrifice, and
Right.
you may not feel it in the moment. You may not feel it over subsequent experiences of that level of sacrifice, but the muscle capacity that you build
Mm,
emotionally, mentally, spiritually
yeah.
from that sacrifice and the gain there is huge. You just have to see it as such.
Yeah.
You have to see
Mm.
it as such.
Mikel, I know your middle name spelled, I mean, is Brand, but you have been a blessing for sure.
Mm,
And those listening, I'm looking forward to listening to this as a guest. Because you gotta be active listening. You gotta be ready to pivot, and hey, as you know, podcasting is yeah, I'm gonna start a podcast. Hey man, it takes some work now. You gotta have the prep and all that
come
stuff
on.
set up. So salute to
Editing,
you.
yes.
Come on, come on. So salute to the Inside Job podcast. Thank you for joining us on ours. How can the folks get a hold of you? So somebody may have listened to this and
Yeah.
said, yo, like I want her for our company. I just want to have a
Mm.
conversation with her. I want to learn more about X, Y, and Z. What is the best way to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So the best. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for creating this space. You and I engage in rich dialogue all the time, like
That's right.
all the time, like this. Even
That's
when I
right.
was a client of IMC, so that
Mhm.
it's been incredible. It's been an
Yeah.
honor. Thank you so much for having me, good sir.
Yes, ma'am.
The best way to get in contact with me, a couple of ways. Well, you said the best way, so let me just give one. Email me directly. So you can email me directly at Mikel, that's Mikel at strive, STRIVE, for impact, MPACT.com.
Yeah.
Hit me up directly via email. You can check out the website, striveforimpact.com, but would love to talk, connect, support you as a coach, as a listener, as a facilitator, as a content creator.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. The Inside Job podcast is on all platforms.
Yes, it is. Yes. Apple,
Apple,
Stitcher,
all that.
Google,
Y'all,
Spotify.
y'all got iPhones anyway. So go and get on your Apple device, subscribe, check out the episodes.
Shout out to the Android users. We see you.
Shout that out. Let me hold on. Now I gotta I've only been with the Apple game for a couple of years, my
Me
Android
too. Me
users,
too. Me too. Yeah.
and you know, I still appreciate the flexibility that we had, the ability to download what you wanted to download.
Yeah.
Now I wasn't too much of a fan of all the different upgrades and updates and things of that nature.
Mhm.
And it was a hit or miss with the
Yeah.
pictures, right?
Yeah.
But hey, dang, do I need a wipe? Hey, but sometimes I'm joy. Hey, it'll have a shot for you. Like, that's a beautiful shot, but it's
Yeah.
like once, every 32 photos. So
32.
I'm
Shade.
selling out. I'm selling out. We had to cut this out because it's oh, Mikel, blessings to you.
Thank you. Likewise.
And as y'all know, make sure you subscribe, stay tuned, share this with a plan. Hold on, I'm tripping. Share this with a friend, and of course, stay planning.
Yes. Peace and blessings. Love and
Bang,
light.
bang, bang, bang.